Hey everyone, it's Cece with One Green Pea. Today, I want to talk to you about how to water your plants. Watering our plants properly is one of the most important things that we do for them. It's also one of the most satisfying. Oftentimes, when we get a new plant, we're told how often it needs to be watered, but very rarely are we shown exactly how to do it. Today, I'm going to walk you through several different techniques for watering, as well as different applications for different kinds of plants. In addition, I'm going to show you some of my very favorite tools that will make your job so much easier. Let's start with tools. I have talked about my favorite watering can in a number of my videos. I love this one because it's nice and sturdy. It has a really long spout so I can get in nice and close to the soil, which is where I want to be watering, and it has a pretty decent capacity. Another tool I never ever water without is my moisture meter. This is a game changer. If you ever have any doubt about whether a plant needs watered, you just stick the prongs down into the soil near the roots and it tells you if it is moist, dry, or saturated. Really useful purchase. I also really like to have a bucket or some sort of a pan. I'll show you what I use these for in a moment. And then another essential, I never water without a towel because invariably I spill or a plant runs over. So I've always got a towel as well. There are two basic methods for watering your houseplants: top down and bottom up. Now, the top down is the one most of us are familiar with. You take your watering can and you pour water into your plant from the top, obviously, and then down. You want to be sure that you're saturating all of the soil until the point at which it actually begins coming out of the drainage hole below. So, most plants, I'm going to say the large majority of plants, want a full soaking when you water them, as if they're in nature and they're getting rained on, so a full saturation. Now, the benefit of a top-down watering method is that in addition to saturating the soil, giving the roots water to take up, you are also helping to flush out any extra salts or minerals that might accumulate in the soil over time. Now, the bottom-up method is the method that I've really come to enjoy because it's passive. It's really easy. So you take a bucket or some sort of container. You could even use your sink. You're going to take your plant pot with drainage holes and then just set it into the bucket or the sink, or sometimes if you have a cache pot, an outer pot without drainage, you can just put a couple of inches of water in the outer pot and set the plant in. And then you're going to leave it there for several hours, up to even overnight. So I often will just come by and sort of check the soil, touch the soil, and make sure that the top of the soil gets saturated. And when that's happened, the plant is done. It's taken up all the water that it needs, and you can take it out, allow it to drain, and then put it back into its pot. It is a lovely passive method for watering, which is one of the great benefits. The other benefit is that the plant takes up as much water as it needs and then is saturated. It doesn't take any more. So the risk of overwatering is very low. The negative is that you aren't flushing out those minerals and salts. So really a mixture of those two methods is most helpful for most of your tropical plants. Now, what about cactus and succulents? For them, I generally employ a top-down watering method. They need water less often, but more of it. I have a video of how to know when your plant needs watered, and so I will reference that and encourage you to go and take a look at that. But as far as watering, you're really going to do the same thing with the top-down method. Thoroughly saturate the soil. Sometimes we get a little bit afraid with our succulents that, we've been told they don't need a lot of water, they don't need a lot of water, which is true. They don't need a lot of water often, but when you do water them, they also want a full saturation of the soil. So you really want to spend some time, get that soil completely saturated. And then of course, make sure that there is no water sitting in the tray. They are very susceptible to root rot and to overwatering. So that's something to be careful with your succulents. Now, top down and bottom up watering will handle most of the houseplants in your collection, but sometimes we have some different types of plants. Let's tackle those now. Air plants. Now, air plants don't need soil, but they do need water. How do you water them? In a bowl of water. So you just take your entire air plant and set it in a bowl of water. You don't have to worry about whether you get the leaves wet, the top of it wet. You do want the base of the air plant in the water, and you just let them float around in the water for 20 to 30 minutes. And you'll be able to tell some of these air plants get to looking quite dry when they are ready for a soaking. Generally though, I try to give mine a bath about once a week. Okay, how about plants in pots without drainage? Now, you know the rule, always have drainage in your pots. Well, sometimes a pot is just too cute not to use. And in that case, you may plant your plant in it. You just have to be extra careful when you water. So I love this heart-shaped Hoya, and I thought it was so perfect in this cute little XO pot. I had to put them together. It doesn't have drainage. Now, oftentimes I will use a drill with a diamond bit and poke a drainage hole in. I didn't do that with this one. So I still water him. I'm just extra careful. I'm sure to let the soil dry out in between, and then I saturate the soil, but I'm always sure that the water drains down completely from the top. So I'm just extra careful. I wouldn't recommend doing that very often, but sometimes it's such a perfect pot, you have to do it. Okay, so another substrate that I have been playing around with a bit, and I've talked about a little bit in some of my videos, is leca, these clay balls. Now, this is a soil-less method of planting, and I don't want to talk a lot about it today, but how do you water plants in leca? Well, you have a pot that the inner pot goes in that doesn't have drainage, and you want to fill that with water so that the water goes up about 1/3 of the way up the inner pot. So you're simply going to pour water in, set the inner pot in, and there you have it. And with leca, you really only have to water every 2, 3, sometimes 4 weeks. It's a really great passive system in that way. So that is how you water plants in leca. The last special situation I want to address today are mounted plants. Now, I have 2 staghorn ferns that I mounted. I made a video of that, so I will link that as well. And I want to show you how to water them. So basically, it's easy. You take them off of the wall, place them in a basin. I have mine just in a pan here today, or a sink or a tub, your shower. And what you're trying to do, what you're wanting to do is get all of the substrate around the root wet. Now, you can soak it completely in a sink or a tub, but what I've found to actually work better is to take it into the tub and use the shower nozzle, or put it in a container like this and then just pour water over it until all of this moss gets really soaked. And I leave it to absorb as much of this water as it will, just for 10, 15 minutes, right? I want to feel it and make sure it's really, really wet. And after it has absorbed as much water as it will, I set it up, drain the water out of the pan, set it up, allow it to drip and dry off overnight, because I don't want to put the wet cedar board back on my wall, and then it will be ready to rehang. So really easy to water this as well. Thank you for watching. I hope that this was useful information and maybe you learned something new about watering your plants. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment if you have any questions or have other tips about watering plants. As always, I really appreciate your support, and if you are not yet subscribed, please hit that red subscribe button so you can join this plant family. Until next time, my plant friends, keep growing.